Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by. I'm really glad you're here. My name is Becca, and this channel is all about my love for spinning, knitting, weaving, sewing, all the fiber things. I invite you to grab whatever project you have on the go and join me. Let's make some stuff. As this is my first episode, I thought I would begin with a little bit about my own crafting journey. As I was growing up, I was really fortunate to be surrounded by wonderful makers. I've been a crafter and a maker for most of my life. And as I was growing up, both my mother and my sister are professional sewists. Another of my sisters is a professional commercial artist, and they all really inspired me to start making things and my own clothes when I was in college, so in my early 20s. I started to sew my own clothing, and about that same time, I had a friend who taught me how to crochet. Shortly thereafter, I had another friend teach me how to read a crochet pattern, and then I was hooked, so to speak. A few years later, I began to learn how to do my own knitting using a written pattern kit, an instructional kit. This was in the days before YouTube, so that would have made things a lot easier. And now here it is decades later, and I'm learning something new, how to do YouTube. So I would like for this channel to be a place where I can not only share my ongoing knitting with you, my spinning with you, my sewing with you, but also a place where we as a community can share with each other and learn from each other. Because even after all of these years of knitting and sewing, I can tell you that things don't always go the way that you planned. There are still mistakes that I make. There are still projects that are in my head in one way and then don't come out on the other end in the way that I expect. And so those are the things that I'd like to share with you, not just the beautiful knitting and spinning and finished objects, but also a bit about the process and the time that it takes to create things such as knitting and spinning and weaving and sewing, because it takes time. And it's something that we do because it takes time and because of how it makes us feel, and at least that's the case for me. So I hope that you'll join me on this journey as we share together our experiences with knitting and spinning and all those fiber things. So now I'll move on to what I'm wearing now. This sweater is one of my own designs called Prairie Fire. This was inspired by an annual event that occurs where I live in the Midwestern United States, in the prairie. And every spring, before they plant the new crops, the farmers burn the old crops, the old fields that have the chaff and the old stems from last year's crop, and they burn them off. And they usually do this in the evening, so when you look out across the fields that are very flat where I live in Kansas, you see this beautiful contrast between the dark blue of the sky and the bright fire line across the fields and the black foreground of the fields. And I just find it absolutely beautiful, and I was really inspired by that. So this is a sneak preview of a pattern that I am working on that will be included in a collection of patterns called Prairie Fire or Knitted Kansas, that's all inspired by the nature and the events that happen where I live. And so when I have the pattern published, I will definitely let you know. But again, this is sort of a sneak preview of the pattern Prairie Fire from that collection. Next, I'd like to share with you one of my spinning works in progress. This is a breed sampler pack that has 24 different breeds, and each small packet has about 25 grams of fiber in. Most of them are sheep breeds, but there are the camelids as well, alpaca, camel, as well as a few plant fibers and other non-wool fibers. So there's some silk, some nettles, which I'm very excited to try. So each one comes with a little card with the name of the breed, also where the breed is from, so the breed origin, the micron count, and the staple length, which is very handy. And they're all natural colors, so from the beautiful gray of the Gotland top to the lovely, lovely dark brown black of this Welsh Mountain top. And this is a project that is in progress, so some of them I've spun, some of them I still have to spin, but I'm trying to spin all of them in the same way, so each of them are 2-ply woolen spun on my Kromsky, oh dear, what is it called? Kromsky Sonata, my Kromsky Sonata, so that I have a consistent idea of how they're going to spin. I'm also saving a bit of the fiber, a bit of the singles, and then I'll save a bit of the 2-ply finished yarn as well to have a breed notebook with all of the samples and also with some notes that I've taken from the spinning process of what it feels like to spin it, what I really like about it, if there are things that I didn't really like about it, what that would be as well. But I think that's going to be a really wonderful resource for me in the future. Then with the rest of all of it, I'm going to knit a shawl that really emphasizes the different colors of the different breeds, as well as the different textures, and I'm super excited about that project. So this is a sample breed from Hearthside Fibers on Etsy, and I'll put a link in the description where you can buy that for yourself. You can get different variety packs, so they have a specifically UK breeds package. I believe they have a long wool or another package, but anyway, there's various ones that you can select from there, and the one that I have is 24 different fibers. So that is my spin in progress. I will put in some footage of myself spinning so that you can see the process and how that works on my wheel. I've been doing a lot more knitting than spinning recently, and one of the things that I have been doing, it seems, is collecting sock yarn. So I won't say that my knitting of socks is to de-stash, because I recently, as in last week, bought 7 more pairs of yarn, 7 more balls of yarn to make 7 more pairs of socks. So I have a lot of socks to create, and I thought that rather than just churning out socks, because I have a lot of other projects that I'd like to make, I would keep socks on the needles as sort of an easy to pick up go-to project for when I am going somewhere, or when I don't have the brain power to knit something that's really complicated. So lots of socks to go. I do have 2 recently finished pairs of socks. The first one doesn't really meet that description I just gave of easy to do, because it is all over colorwork with 7 different colors of yarn, 7 different balls of yarn. This is the Acorn sock pattern from the book Nordic Knitting Traditions by Susan Anderson Freed. And I do really like a knitting pattern book with the different collections. So I have a lot of pattern books in my collection. But this is Katie's Acorn socks from the book. And I did change to the color palette into this purple and cream, which I think really turned out nicely. But one of the things that I love about patterned socks is the sole, with the patterned sole. I think that's just so cute. So this was the first pair of socks that I made this year. The second pair is also very striking in the color palette and the color pattern, but this one was much easier. This is a vanilla sock pattern with a self-striping yarn. The yarn comes from Turtle Purl on Etsy, and this is the color pattern called Trench Coat, with this tan and black and white and red. This was, however, I did learn a new technique for this sock. I've knitted dozens of pairs of socks, but this was my very first afterthought heel. And I was a little bit intimidated to cut into my knitting, but thanks to many YouTube tutorials, which I will link to below, I was able to do it. It wasn't as hard as I thought, but I really love the way these turned out. I have another color of yarn that I purchased from Turtle Purl Yarns, and it's called Iris. So that's in my yarn stash for socks. So I'm excited about that, but it's just beautiful, and the yarn is so soft and lovely to wear. So those are the 2 pairs of socks that I have finished. The next knitting work in progress I have is a lace shawl, and this is yarn that I dyed myself using Greener Shades acid dyes in shades of yellow and orange, and there's some reddish pink in there as well. I also spun it in this 2-ply lace weight on my Ashford Elizabeth II spinning wheel with the enormous 30-inch wheel, which is just perfect for doing lace weight yarns. It's really effortless. But this yarn base, or the fiber base, comes from Knit Picks. It's their Bare Roving in silk and wool. So it is 30% silk, 70% merino wool, and it's just so soft. It's like a cloud. So knitting this up on, I think they're size 4 needles. So this will be a triangle shawl. The majority of the body is garter stitch, but then there is lace along the edge, which will be about 12 inches or so, about a foot of lace. I'm calling this shawl my Mango Sunrise shawl because of the color. I just think it's so bright and sunny, and it makes me happy to look at it. This pattern that I'm using is from another knitting pattern book. This is called Folk Shawls by Shawl Oberly, and the pattern is called the Wool Peddler's Shawl. And the yarn that I'm using is much finer than the yarn that was used in the pattern, so I'm having to make adjustments for that. It's a lot of stitches. But the lace pattern is fairly simple. And it's coming along nicely, and I think I should finish it fairly soon. But it weighs almost nothing, so it's going to be really wonderful to wear. So that's my knitting works in progress and my finished objects. So that's it for this video. Thank you so much for spending some of your creative time with me. I hope you've had fun. I had fun, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!